Hello everybody, it's Breezy, and today I've got some D&D and RPG horror stories for you. Of course, I'll be reading the stories and giving my thoughts and opinions at the end, and sometimes throughout the stories. So, I've got some pretty good ones for you this evening. Now, let's get started. Wizard commits act of domestic terrorism and thinks he did nothing wrong. Characters: Cleric, Wizard, who's the problem player, Paladin, Fighter, and Monk. This happened a few months ago. In my current campaign, DM, the party visited the kingdom's magical hub city to investigate a series of nightmares, madness, and seek more information about the plane of dreams. The Paladin, a new introduction to the party in-game, brought them to his brother, a conjuration wizard who has conducted a sleep study and research about said phenomenon. Now, the wizard's sister has been a key player in the plot, as she is heavily linked to the birth of a new god and has been giving clues while trapped in the dream realm and suffering from madness herself. This was the wizard's driving force. Research led the team to an asylum, where they intended to question one of the patients who partook in the sleep study for more information. The wizard and monk went undercover as orderlies, and when simply asked where they were headed, the wizard said, "Should we, boom." Now, I've only been playing D&D for a little over a year now, but isn't it usually the artificer that wants to blow shit up? The wizard is just kind of the one that casts fireball. Maybe I'm confused. The wizard initiated combat for no reason, which set off a building-wide battle while the rest of the party struggled to make it into the building for aid, not knowing what was happening. The event resulted in the wizard casting lightning bolt on innocent civilians trying to protect patients from what is now domestic terrorism. The wizard reads a spell description mentioning that it ignites any object not being worn or carried. Okay, I described the asylum as catching fire, which becomes a further obstacle. Several rounds later, the wizard's player, who we'll call Josh, is confused and upset as to why everything is burning. Like, baby girl, you read the description! The wizard then attempts to get the patient, Subject G, to come with him. Subject G has been described to suffer from extreme paranoia and is unable to function in society. Not to mention that now she is trapped in a burning building with the man who started it all. The wizard then gets extremely upset that his plan isn't working. Meanwhile, the rest of the party is begging him to leave with them as the city guard is reinforcing and headed to their location. The cleric, his best friend at the time, is sobbing in and out of game while sending him a message to leave. The wizard only says, "Give me a minute." The fighter, observing it all, contemplates shooting the wizard, as this, to him, is way past the point of no return. He is no longer a hero. The wizard attempts to manipulate the fighter with magic, which shocked his player and later prompted him to express said boundary outside game. Now, this is the least of the problems. Outside of the game, Josh refuses to acknowledge that he, A, derailed the campaign and essentially ruined what the party was working towards, and B, he genuinely hurt another player's, Alex, feelings and crossed a personal line. Amid this and outside talks of how to handle the campaign situation, Josh simply said that they would blame the Paladin's brother for everything because he did the sleep study to prove people crazy and gave them drugs. I gave them a whole dossier. Dossier? I don't know how that's pronounced. I gave them a whole dossier of said study in-game, where it was explicitly stated that no drugs were given. At this point, we were unsure if Josh wasn't paying attention or was just using this as an excuse. When the cleric's player asked if he seriously planned on doing this, he actually called her delusional, saying that he never said that. Several screenshot receipts were shared with him of the previous conversation, and he still denied it. Josh still refused to apologize to Alex and began attacking him personally, despite Alex being calm and only trying to establish a basic boundary in and out of game. Several other players reached out to Josh, trying to get through to him, but to no avail. Eventually, it seemed like the two had come to an understanding and agreed to sort things out character-wise the following session. When the session came around, the wizard doubled down yet again and then started yelling at the players and calling them delusional yet again. The session promptly ended. I attempted to reach out to Josh to mediate and tried to schedule a three-way call between him, Alex, and I. Josh ignored my messages for 3 days straight and then said he was busy. In reality, he was active in other servers playing video games with some of our other friends. After everything, I kicked him out of the campaign, and it's better off without him. He still interacts with us on other servers like nothing happened. Most of us try to ignore him. We'll make another post with conversation screenshots since I can't upload more than one on here. Sounds to me like the wizard just wanted to have a big epic battle and just wanted to blow things up. I don't know why. And for him to not even take into consideration of the other players' feelings is just a dick move, man. He just sounds like a really not fun, douchey player to play with. Anyways, on to the next story. This would be cool if it were real. This is only light horror, but I think about it often, and I still can't really wrap my head around it. Years ago, I was running my first party module for D&D 5e. At a certain point, an NPC shows up who is a legacy character who has existed for several editions. His being there is a bit of a spoiler, so I'll just say the NPC's name is Bilbo. Well, one of my players had been a D&D player since 3rd edition and knew a fair bit about the lore. When the characters showed up, he recognized them and enjoyed the reference. But then the weirdness started. He kept saying things like this. "Oh wow, I love Bilbo. This would be great if it were the real Bilbo." If this was the real Bilbo, I'd ask him about X. Yeah, I remember that about Bilbo. Well, the real Bilbo. The real Bilbo was so cool. I was confused. I clarified that the party was interacting with a real person, not an illusion or anything like that. Nor an impersonator. I emphasized that he was free to ask about anything he liked, but he just kept declining any meaningful interaction because it wasn't the real Bilbo. Eventually I moved on because I had to, but I kind of regret it. I don't talk to this player anymore, and I still don't really know what his conception of Bilbo was in his mind. In what way wasn't it the real Bilbo? Did he consider 3rd edition canon and 5th edition non-canon? Was it not real because of the story at our table, not the official canon? But then, wouldn't all NPCs be not real? Was it a veiled jab at me as a DM and my ability to create a convincing world? Does he think D&D characters exist in actual real life or something? Edit. Since people are asking and nobody's actually got it yet, the character was Strongheart the Paladin in Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Okay, I don't know anything about 3rd edition. I've only ever played 5th edition, but I do know a thing or two about legacy characters. Due to me having played all 3 Baldur's Gate games. Because you want to know who else is a legacy character? In Baldur's Gate 3, that would be Jaheira and Minsk, because they were in the last two games. So it not only ties it in to the other Baldur's Gate games, but a whole new party gets to interact with legendary heroes. Does he think Jaheira and Minsk in BG3 aren't the real Minsk and Jaheira? Because they're most likely not the same voice actors from Baldur's Gate 1 and 2? I don't understand what this person was getting at either. This was really confusing. I have no idea what this guy was thinking. Anyways, let's get on with another story. The Man, the Myth, the Clown. Group Collapse, a Dungeons & Dragons horror story. Intro. Our group originally consisted of 5 people and a Dungeon Master, DM, with a 6th joining later. The group included myself, Colt, Coco, Jester, Clown, the main problem player, and the DM. My cousin joined us during the 3rd campaign. I met the DM and Jester through work, and they seemed like relaxed, fun people. I was excited to join their homebrew campaign. Despite my learning disability, especially with writing, I've always loved storytelling, and this was one of my first time documenting such a personal experience for a long period of time. I was dead wrong. Even before we began the first campaign, issues were already appearing. Clown, who had been with the group longer, told the DM things wouldn't be the same with me and Jester joining. He implied that the group worked better when it was only his close friends. The DM disagreed and welcomed new players, and the rest of us were excited to join. Campaign 1, Bad Moon. The first campaign was a homebrew cosmic horror adventure. I played a tiefling ranger, arcane archer. Clown played a goblin rogue. Coco was an orc paladin, and Jester played a kobold barbarian. Things started off well. I was fairly quiet since I was still new, and Clown even helped me with my character sheet, which at the time I appreciated. By the 3rd session, however, things fell apart. We approached a mysterious tower with a padlocked door covered in warning signs. Cloud insisted on unlocking it despite the clear danger. I kept my distance, playing cautiously, but when he opened it, he unleashed a giant amalgamation that destroyed the tower. The party split in panic. I ended up with the Clown, who promptly said, "I barely know the guy," and refused to help me. I was killed by the creature while Clown sat in a tree. The DM pulled me aside afterward and explained that Clown's behavior wasn't acceptable and didn't reflect how D&D should be played. Thankfully, I was allowed to return using the same character, but Clown wasn't happy. In the next session, during a major boss fight, he refused to take the battle seriously. Instead, he made paper airplanes and threw them at the boss, dealing 1 damage per turn. This clearly frustrated the DM, who had spent time preparing an intense encounter. Another key moment came when Jester jumped into a well made of writhing flesh. Ew! Clearly dangerous and unnatural. No one else wanted to save him because the decision was so obviously reckless. Despite being a dexterity-based ranger, I was the only one who attempted to pull him out, using strength checks I had little chance of succeeding with. It was frustrating to see players make reckless choices and then expect others to bail them out, especially when they mocked or ignored the group cooperation elsewhere. Soon after, tensions moved from the table to discord. When we tried to have a serious discussion about Clown's behavior, he ignored it. While joking around, he told Coco to get good. I replied, "Maybe check Dollar Tree and get good." A harmless group-style roast. Clown took deep offense, accusing me of calling him poor and insisting we didn't know each other well enough. to joke like that. When I clarified it was just a joke, he escalated things by calling me fucking autistic. While I admit I lost patience and responded with a sharp remark, I told him a joke, not a dick. Don't take it so hard. The conversation exposed how unwilling Clown was to handle conflict maturely. Eventually, the DM removed him from the campaign, but his behavior didn't stop. He harassed Coco over his new character for Curse of Strahd, calling it, I'm not saying that word, and trying to micromanage his build by saying it's a weak character, that he won't go far with it. It was how he would have built it, etc. Still, he would return. Campaign 2, Curse of Strahd. When we started Curse of Strahd, the DM gave Clown a second chance. This time, the party consisted of Clown, a Warforged, Jester, an elf, Coco, an Aasimar, and myself, also an Aasimar. Thankfully, I wasn't paired with Clown for any backstory connections. Clown didn't last 2 sessions. He constantly insulted Jester's character, calling him a pussy for making careful roleplay-driven decisions. When the group stopped reacting, Clown became more aggressive and eventually stormed out. He later returned for one more session, playing a wizard, but left again. This time, because the campaign wasn't about him. Oh, that's the issue, I see. Campaign 3, Arms Dealer. The final campaign, Arms Dealer, was a gritty Western-inspired homebrew world with warring factions. I played a Tabaxi, Coco played a Leonin, Jester returned as a human, my cousin joined as a were-rat, and Clown played a kobold. As soon as my cousin joined, Clown's toxicity returned. He greeted him with, "Who the fuck is this?" on Discord. Not exactly a warm welcome. I reminded him this wasn't how you treat people. And Clown responded with hostility, accusing me of correcting his manners. Arguments became frequent. It didn't stop there. Behind the scenes, Clown was privately messaging Jester. Before long, Jester began turning on the DM as well, echoing Clown's criticisms that the story was inconsistent and poorly managed. The two of them began actively trying to derail the campaign. To this day, I don't know why or how Jester joined Clown's antics. They attempted to kill central NPCs that were clearly crucial to the plot. Worse, they tried to initiate PvP combat and even encouraged a total party kill when they didn't get their way. Jester suggested we kill a child NPC just to throw off the continuity of the sequel campaign, something that no one else supported. That changed Jester's alignment from neutral good to chaotic evil, as this caused one of the PvP, basically those who wanted to save the kid versus those who didn't. After Jester ran off and triggered combat with a dragon and a death knight, both of which were way above our level, as my cousin and I said no way we can take that on, and the DM warning them that they can't, they refused to listen, and the party was wiped out except for me. I basically escaped using my rogue movement / tabaxi, and when given the opportunity to resurrect someone through story mechanics, I chose my cousin, the only one who stayed with me and didn't try to sabotage the group. Clown and Jester were furious, claiming that I was favoring my cousin and that I should have revived them instead. When I pushed back, saying we needed to let the DM tell the story his way, Clown lost it again, accusing me of derailing the conversation. Jester backed him up. Meanwhile, the DM, struggling with anxiety and depression, was profusely apologizing for any inconsistencies. He asked for a short break between sessions to get everything back on track. Instead of being understanding, Clown and Jester doubled down on their criticism, picking apart every small thing and dragging out arguments for days. Eventually, my cousin and I stopped responding. That's when Clown began ranting about being ignored. My cousin started simply liking his messages instead of replying, a quiet way to acknowledge without engaging. Clown completely lost it, accusing him of mocking and disrespecting him. I reminded Clown once more, just let the DM run the game. That was the final straw. Clown left the server. Jester followed shortly after. There was so much more than that in itself, however. I was keeping this PG-13. Basically more swearing tossed around than in Hell of a Boss / Has-Been. Aftermath. This experience was exhausting, frustrating, and honestly sad. What started as a creative and social outlet turned into a source of stress and anxiety, not because of the game, but because of people who refused to respect it or each other. Clown and Jester were more focused on control and chaos than collaboration. They refused to take accountability, constantly disrupted the narrative, and created a hostile environment for the DM and players alike, from PvP attempts and reckless roleplay to harassment, threats, and emotional manipulation. The damage they did went far beyond the table, to the point where the DM and I actively avoid Jester at work and DM cut things off with Clown. But after they left, something incredible happened. Our group started having fun again. We brought in a new player, supported each other, and got back to what D&D is really about. Storytelling, friendship, and shared imagination. Go figure. Sorry this is more underwhelming than others on here, but I'm happy to have shared it. Wow, that was quite the read. Yeah, I had several thoughts about this, but I think OP summed it up perfectly. They were more focused on wanting to push the game and make it go their way rather than let the DM drive the story. You know, the DM has a story with several plot hooks planned out for you. And it's your job to follow through with those plot hooks. The fun of the roleplay comes from how would your character react in this situation or this situation, you know? And you can do things in D&D that you can't normally do in other video games. Maybe a video game doesn't have a dialogue choice you can particularly do, or it doesn't let you mess with an NPC in a funny way that D&D would let you do. That's why I like D&D. I can do things that I normally can't do in video games. I mean, I love video games. I really do. But the roleplay aspect of Dungeons and Dragons is just... There's just so much you can do, and it's all a matter of what you want to react to and how you want to react to it. Your only limit is your imagination, and that's why I love it so much. So for someone to just come in and try to be like, no, we're not doing that, we're doing this, and if you don't like it, well, I'll just kill off your character, they suddenly make the game not fun anymore. And that's what Clown and Jester did. Anyways, that was a really long story. How about a meme palate cleanser, shall we? As a forgetful DM, I hate using Google AI during a game, because if I wanted misinformation about class features or spell descriptions, I'd just ask the players. Duh! If paladins can't punch smite, then monks can't punch stun. Both features say that the character must make a melee weapon attack. Also, unarmed strike is listed as a simple melee weapon. Until we meet again! And there's from the official book, if you want to pause the video and read it. Go ahead. I'll wait. Can I get an order for the name? Vornin Redhelm. What do you want? Mead and stew. Deal. Huh? Oh, you just became a warlock, dude. A warlock of the Fey Wilds. You better hope that's not a hag. Hags are just... You better hope that's not a hag. DM. Okay, so the orc bartender, player. I thought you said they were a half-orc like an hour ago. DM. They are suddenly more orcish. Player. What? How? DM. Because an hour of player time is 10 hours of DM time, and I have the memory of a goldfish. Vampires who just use way too much 90s slang. Vampires who say booyah when they get too excited. Vampires who mix all slang from the past 5 centuries mercilessly within the same breath and don't even try to stop it anymore. Unhand me, you egg-sucking, lily-livered, jive-talking wackadoo, fell villain, cur! I bite my thumb at thee, you ugly motherfucker, so hasta la bye-bye, daddy-o. My eyes are bleeding. Okay, well, hopefully you enjoyed those and you got just as much of a laugh out of them as I did. Let's get on with our last few stories. DM changes narrative to suit their partner. I, the bard, psychic lanced the evil dwarf king while our tiefling wizard charged, shoving him into the pit of spikes. Quickly, using mage hand to grab the crown we needed to control the dragon terrorizing the town. We were so pumped and excited that we got an awesome death scene for the first big bad we encountered. Unfortunately, one player, DM's partner, another bard, wanted to save the corrupted dwarf and not kill him. They whined, I wanted to save him. He could be a nice dwarf. Hey, that's not fair. And the DM, being their partner, reversed the nat 20 kill and everything we did to let their partner mage hand the dwarf to try to save him. The crown fell into the pit below. The dwarf was beyond corrupted for centuries and was evil. We were told in the narrative by NPCs he's beyond saving. His old self was lost. The bard didn't return for sessions after that because of the argument we had after the fact. Me to DM partner. What's not fair is you went against the plan we all agreed on and suddenly wanted to divine intervention, a nat 20, attack me and Tiefling did because you wanted attention. The DM didn't like this kind of talk towards their partner from me and the other players, so I responded, I get you're the DM, but you can't change the story because your boyfriend doesn't get his way. That's not fair to the rest of us. As the player refused to change their narrative of saving the Dwarf King, so we all unanimously agreed that we aren't continuing until we play the way the roles went. We never continued the campaign after that, unfortunately. My question for you all is, when a couple plays tabletop games, does this type of behavior happen often or rarely for some of you? I understand that romancing adds a different dynamic, but I'm specifically referring to situations where one partner throws a tantrum and demands that the DM change the game so they always win, or something similar. Yeah, they have a serious relationship issues they need to work on, because personally, I think the DM did this so that an argument wouldn't ensue between them later. I get that it can be easy to cater to a loved one, but don't. Just go by the rules, you know. I had to have a small talk with my brother, who is my DM, about being a little too nice to me over his friend who has had 2 characters killed off, and I'm just getting to my second character, and my first character didn't even die. She simply retired for the time being. So, yeah. You know, just stop showing favoritism, because it makes the game not fun for everyone else around you. But good on OP for setting up a boundary and sticking with it. Unfortunately, no D&D is better than bad D&D. Okay, I think we've got time for one more story. Entry into the hobby reveals an affair. I worked at a small studio producing games, and I was really excited to be there. A lot of people who worked there were very into D&D. I had never played. While I've always been a nerd, I never thought I was that kind of nerd. But people talked about it a lot. I really wanted to be involved and get to know everyone at my new job. I started watching Critical Role. It was just started and was not super famous yet. I stumbled on it early campaign 1. I really liked it and became the cursed would-be player every neckbeard on Reddit warns about. I wanted to play D&D and had high expectations. Realistically, I always think these Mercer ruined D&D because players' expectations are off were always very silly. It didn't take me long to understand, once I started playing, that this was very different from what I had seen. I played in several games at my work. John was my first DM and Gary was my second. I ended up eventually asking Gary to DM for my friends outside of work, trying to bring my circle into the game, but we will touch on that later. The first campaign, I make a half-orc rogue. A bunch of us at work play. Another couple of dudes and one woman playing. I'm good friends with just one in the group. Gary made an ASMR paladin. We also had a wizard who was like a stereotypical old man, wanting to go to bed at 7 and always get there early in case there's a line, and a half-elf bard. The lady played warlock, and my buddy another rogue, gnome. Gary and Bard helped me make my character, but they warned me throughout how it wasn't optimized and orcs are hated. Looking back, no, he wasn't, but he also wasn't bad. I made a pretty solid first character, and watching Critical Role any fantasy racism didn't seem to be too crazy. I figured I could handle it. So John and Gary were really into Warhammer, and they loved dwarves. Dwarves were the best, and orcs were definitely hated. All dwarves were super mean, and also like insanely strong. Every dwarf we encountered could kick my guy's ass easily, or so I was told. And they were always semi-hostile. The game leans heavily into Warhammer themes. Gary and John are buds, and the Paladin has the coolest story. Really the only one, as we fight through some mini Warhammer dwarf versus demon arc. Until we get to the giant fight deep underground. I'm playing an assassin with a crossbow. I find the giant and tell everyone to hold up. I shoot my leading shot and roll super high on damage. Crack! It hits and breaks an invisible wall of ice. I'm told now they know we are here. I get sass, but the fight begins. The giant seems incredibly tough. The giants seem incredibly tough and seem to be empowered by some crystals on the wall. Gary and Warlock are focusing on the crystals. After a few turns of this, DM says out of character that doing this is foolish. I'm confused because the way he described it, it did sound like crystals were protecting the giants. And also, Gary seems to always get approval for literally everything he does. Warlock and Gary are always patted on the head, so for John to scold them like this was very out of character. Usually me and Buddy are the problem, wanting to do crazy stuff like RP out story and solve mysteries. But around later, Warlock is legitimately splattered against the wall. In one round, DM downs Warlock and Gary, then kills them, attacking while they are downed, brutally. Gary is chopped in half or something. Buddy then gets stomped into a fine paste. I was shocked. Things had never gone this bad. All of our usual tricks were countered in one way or another. My rogue tried to save Buddy, but failed. And the description of the deaths were among the most graphic I've heard in my time in the hobby. Wizard and Bard start to flee. My non-optimal half-orc rogue gets on the remaining giant's head and crits with sneak attack, ending the brutal fight. It was insanely brutal, and apparently the crystals did nothing. I was shell-shocked, but thought that this was normal. Bard went down less brutally, and though we could have likely saved him, opts to let the character go. Just me and cranky old Wizard left. Now, Warlock never came back. Everyone else made new characters. Dwarves, since we were in the Dwarf Kingdom. Hooray, more dwarves that hate me. The campaign kept going for a bit until fizzling out. I didn't find out that Gary and John's wife had been caught kissing at a party a week before the session until way later from a buddy. Buddy had known. Warlock was at the party and apparently knew. Bard and Gary were super close, so I can only assume. DM lashed out at the table, nearly TPK'd us, and almost everyone knew and came back to play for several months. Gary and John both DM'd in a very punitive sort of way. Most, if not all, NPCs were default annoyed with us. Story nearly always focusing on cool dwarf plots, even if no PCs were related to it. Gary's campaign for my friends did not go great. We had some fun, we were friends, but it was pretty old school, pretty adversarial. This was years ago. I learned a lot of lessons from those games of what I hated and started running my own games. I had a 1 to 12 campaign prior to pandemic, and I'm currently 3 years deep into my hopefully 1 to 20 campaign after a bit of a hiatus. I also have another game with local friends that is several months deep, running Strahd. So a tumultuous entry, but still very much love the hobby and DM the way I wished I was DM'd for. Wow, there must have been some real underlying tension for the months that went on there. I mean, everyone knew and no one thought to tell the DM? Like, all of them would have rather have the game continued than to tell someone, hey, your wife is at this table with her affair partner. Dude, everyone sucks here. Not OP. OP didn't know. But, yeah, and then for the DM to lash out like that was not fun for anyone else at that table. Wow. So I guess the lesson here is just don't cheat on your partner. Just don't cheat on your partner. It is not hard to stay loyal. Seriously, people. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. And if you want to support me and my channel, feel free to support me on Patreon, link below. I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye!